I hope we haven't done this before. I
So
looked for
do
it. I
I.
couldn't find it. Hello. We're live. Hello
Hello.
and welcome. It's Wednesday, so that means only one thing. It's time for you to take your English up to the next level. My name's Craig. I'm from the website mansioningles.com, where you can find free material and courses to improve your English. And also you can listen to our podcast over at inglespodcast.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And with me, I'm delighted to say hello yet again to the wonderful Lynne from putitlikethis.com.
I keep coming back, don't I, like an old penny.
How are
Hello,
you?
everybody. I'm fine, thanks, Craig. And hi, everybody. My name's Lynne, as Craig said, and I'm from putitlikethis.com. And I'm an online teacher doing tailor-made courses. So if you have a specific objective in English, then you can go to my website and you might be interested in some of the kind of classes that I can offer you. But tonight we're talking about, Craig, what are we talking about? Did I forget it again?
Yeah, I couldn't remember. Shall we explain what happened? We were going to talk about something different, weren't we? We were going to talk
We
about
were. We have to
double
tell
meanings.
everybody, we have to tell you the anecdote because we had a hilarious moment this week because Craig and I usually the weekend before we kind of finalize what we're going to talk about in this session. And Craig sent me an email and we had a couple of ideas for the class, but we were both quite busy. So we thought we'd stick with one that Craig said, oh, I think I've got this already, like, you know, more or less prepared. He said, it was words with similar meanings. Let's do a one on words with similar meanings. And I looked at it and I looked at the document and I said, yeah, that looks good. But there was a little voice in my head and I was thinking, this looks really a bit familiar, but I didn't realize. And then I said, let's just go for that one. We'll do that one. Yeah, because that's more or less, you know, I'll think about some other things to it. And then the next morning I got an email from Craig and Craig said to me, we did that in October.
Yep.
I forgot to take the document down. So you'd made a mistake with your filing system, hadn't you?
It was a senior moment. We'll look at that expression a bit later. It was a senior moment. So I hope regular viewers and listeners like Hema and Christine and Pepe and Aldo, who are just joining us live, I hope we haven't spoken about age before. If we have, please forgive us. We're not spring chickens anymore. And that's another
phrase
expression you will learn later. So good to see you here. I hope you're all doing well.
Yes. Of course, it could have been a test, couldn't it, to see if our old faithfuls like Christine and Hema and Pepe and Aldo, if you actually recognize that we would repeat a class.
Or if you actually listen to us as we're rabbiting on and babbling on every Wednesday. But if you're watching the replay as well, it's good to have you with us. Thank you for joining us on the replay. And we'll kick off with our first expressions about age. These are expressions describing age that you can use in English to talk about different stages of age as we move through life. So
we have had some of these expressions before in a previous class. I do remember this, but it was a different topic. It wasn't talking about age. So what have we got? We've got a baby when you're obviously born. Everybody knows that one. A toddler. Sometimes people don't know that word in English. A toddler is when a baby just begins to start to walk and they don't walk properly. They toddle and they fall over a lot. So a toddler is usually about, I think, 2, 3 until they start to walk properly. And then when they can walk properly, we call them a child, obviously. And a child is kind of up to about age 10, 11, 12, what would you say? 12 really officially. Because
until the teenage years.
Yeah, because 13. After a child, you become a teenager, and a teenager starts where all of the numbers are, so that finish with the word teen. So 13, 14, 15. So from 13 to 19, you are a teenager.
And be careful with that word child, because it has an irregular plural. And that's a mistake I sometimes hear from my students. It's one child, two children, more than one. Use the noun children. And a friend, Anna, is asking about age of people and expressions that we use for different reasons that are related to age. So more about people than things, Anna.
And we're also talking about what it's like to get older, Anna, because unfortunately none of us get younger, do we?
Well, thankfully,
Everybody gets older.
Thankfully, we get older, otherwise we'd be dead. And Christine says, it's always a pleasure to listen. Thank you, Christine. It's a pleasure to have you with us as well.
Indeed. Okay, so after a teenager, you become a young adult. That's kind of in your 20s, I would say, isn't it, really?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can hit middle age. Now, middle age is a bit of a tricky one to pin down, isn't it? Because sometimes middle age, when I was younger, I used to think you were middle-aged if you were 30. Now that I'm older, I like to consider myself as middle-aged. How would you exactly define middle-aged?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's an awkward one because I think I was middle-aged when I was sort of 40s and early 50s, but now I'm 58, but I'm not a pensioner.
No, you're not.
So am I middle-aged? I feel older than middle-aged. I'm not sure. It's a difficult, like Lynne said, it's difficult to pin down. When you pin something down, you put an exact number or parameter on it. So middle age, not sure. Not sure.
Mature. We're mature.
I'm not sure
we can
about
say
that.
We're mature. And then, of course, a pensioner is definitely somebody who is retired and is on the pension. And of course, usually that happens like 67, 68, isn't it? Like late 60s, maybe onwards. Okay, so they're the common things.
And speaking about being a young adult, if you imagine someone in their 20, 25, maybe, you can say that they are in their prime. Now, prime means the best. Obviously, you've heard of Amazon Prime or different Prime services, something that's very good or very optimal. So if you are in your prime or in the prime of life, that means you're in your best years. So you have the most energy, maybe you're the most attractive, maybe you're very energetic and very fit. That will be the prime of life.
I'm in my prime, aren't you, Craig? You have to say you're in the prime.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I'm in my prime.
No, we've been in our prime. Well, I'm looking at some of the comments. We've got some lovely comments. Eduardo says, these days, some people are teenagers until they're in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s.
I like this one. Eduardo says the 50s are the new 40s.
Yes. I like that.
That makes me feel better.
And Hima Graciela says in your late 50s, which we're going to talk about, this expression late 50s. That's quite correct, Graciela. And Hima's got a lovely one. Hima she reckons she's in middle age from now until the end. I'm with you, Hima.
Yes, that sounds good to me as well.
Let's be in middle age from now until the end. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a few more things to describe the age itself, haven't we?
Yep, she's just turned. To turn, when you turn an age, that means you've just had the birthday that the age is. Recently. So if your birthday was in January, you can say, I've just turned whatever. How old are you? Oh, I've just turned 20, 25, whatever your age is. Just one thing that's not on one of these cards that we've prepared. Be careful of the pronunciation and the expression, how old are you? It's quite difficult to say and to understand when a native speaker says it, because we tend to say it quite quickly. So it's how old are you? And the how old, that joins together. Those two sounds join together. Well, you've just given a wonderful pronunciation course, Lynne. Am I saying this correctly? How old are you?
Well, actually, what that is the intrusive W again, because the word how doesn't finish with a W. The word how finishes with a vowel sound, ow, like ow. And the next words old also starts with a vowel sound. But if we try to say that, then we will slow our speech down, because we say how old, because the vowel sounds are quite muscular, and so there's a lot of positioning involved. Now, what we actually do is that we push in when we have a word finishing in a vowel sound and the next word starts with a vowel sound. There's 3 sounds that we can push in, right? In this case, we like to push in the W. Now, funnily enough, the W is in the spelling, isn't it? How. But we don't say how.
How.
No, we don't say how. But when we say old afterwards, we suddenly say, how old are you? And that helps you speak very quickly.
And is that
So
true
that
whenever the
W
next word begins with a vowel
with
sound?
a vowel sound. If there's no vowel sound, if in the following word after how, for example, how many, there's no w in how many. Right, but how old, the W appears again. So that helps you a little bit with word linking. The problem is that sometimes it's difficult to hear, because you hear it like one word. How old are you? How old are you? And you think, how old? What's how old? Is that a new word? Harold, or what is that word? How old? But it's actually 2 words. It's how old, but we link them together, and it's much easier to say. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're right to say, how old are you?
And when we're speaking about birthdays that have recently happened, she's just turned or I've just turned. If a birthday is approaching, it's in the near future, you can use this expression. I'll be 20 next week, or I'll be 50 next birthday. Or if you're getting old, you tend to use the expression I'm pushing. For example, I'm pushing 50, or I'm pushing 35, for example. I'm nearly at that age.
Yeah, but we often say with the I'll be, you can say any age. But with the I'm pushing, Craig, don't you think we tend to say that for the
Older.
decades? You know, I'm pushing 30.
Yes.
I'm pushing
Yes.
40.
True.
I'm pushing 50. It's more for the decades. You don't say I'm pushing 32.
And it also tends to be for older people, rather than, like, you wouldn't really say I'm pushing 20.
No.
Not so common. But when you get past sort of 30s and 40s, then yeah.
We're always trying to push them away, really. But they keep coming. Okay, and then we have another one, to be underage. And to be underage means that you will be below the legal age of consent, depending on what that is in your country. So in Britain, the age of consent is 18, for example, to be able to drink alcohol or to get married and things like that. And if you are underage, it means you legally are under that age of consent. Of course, in America, for alcohol, I think it's 21, isn't it, before you can drink alcohol?
Yeah, I think it depends on the state, but yeah, in many states
probably.
it's 21. And you often hear the collocation underage drinking. That often goes together. People in the street sometimes drink underage, and that's underage drinking. He was arrested for underage drinking, for example. And these, well, we've mentioned some of these before. And I think, was it Hema that
Graciela got that one.
Yeah. So we can use these 3 prefixes, early, mid, and late, to describe decades. So early 30s, early 40s, early 50s is from 30 to 34, for example, or 33. And then the mids, what would you say, Lynn? 34, 35,
34,
36?
35, 36. Yeah.
And then late, obviously, towards the end of the
End
decade.
of
So
decade.
late 30s, 37, 38, 39. And you can use those for any decade to describe your age if you don't want to be exact, or you're just guessing the age of someone. Oh, I don't know how old she is, but she must be in her early 30s, for example.
Stop talking about me, Craig.
Yeah, I know. Oh, sorry.
I am
Lynn,
here.
I think with Lynn, it's more mid-30s, not early 30s. It's more mid-30s.
Okay. And then we've got a very, these are two nice little expressions. Sometimes we say she lived to a ripe old age. This is usually
Like fruit.
describing, this is describing somebody who was unfortunately dead now. When you say she lived to a ripe old age. Now, the expression a ripe old age, ripe is, as Craig said, we usually use the word ripe to describe fruit. So you have a ripe banana or a ripe avocado or a ripe apple, which means that it's ready to eat. It's mature. Yeah. And a ripe old age, if you live to a ripe old age, then it means you've had a very long life and you've managed to get to a very old age.
What do you think a ripe old age is? What would you say a ripe old
Over
age?
80,
95?
I would say.
Over 80.
I would say over 80. It's probably going up because, of course, life expectancy is going up. When my grandparents were alive, a ripe old age was probably 75 or something.
Yeah, true.
But now maybe a ripe old age is 90 or 100. I'm not there yet, so I don't really know.
And a very similar expression from cricket, from the English sport cricket, although you wouldn't think it's English the way we played against Australia, but that's a different thing. So if you have a good innings in cricket, then you are batting the ball for a long time. You score many runs. We say runs in cricket. So if you're batting and scoring high points, you have a good innings. And this simile can also be used for life. If you have a good innings, you've lived a long life, which is very similar to living to a ripe old age. You have a good innings.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we have a lot of phrases which I described, didn't we, when we were talking about this? I described them as tongue in cheek. I don't know if you know this kind of, can you do that again, Craig? That's a tongue in your cheek. And that expression, tongue in cheek, means that they're kind of not, that the words that we had before are very descriptive and you would use those in serious and normal situations. But the words that we're going to give you now, you use in situations when you want to make a kind of joke, or you're not being totally serious. You're making light of your age. You're trying to make a bit of a joke about it. Okay. So all of these phrases that we're going to give you now are tongue in cheek. Mm-hmm. And one of the expressions is because funnily enough, lots of people don't like to say how old they are, don't they, Craig? If you ask people, especially women, how old are you? They try to avoid the direct answer. So they say things like, oh, I'm pushing, or I'm in my mid, or they'll say,
well, how old do I look?
How old do I look? They often reply. I've stopped saying that because I get bad answers. So you can ask me, Craig. Go on, ask me now directly.
How old do you look? How old are you, Lynn?
I'm not as young as I used to be. All right, so that's a nice sort of euphemistic way to avoid the question. I'm not as young as I used to be, obviously, right? Or you can say, I'm not getting any younger.
And I think those two... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go on. No, go on.
I was going to add that I think these two expressions are often used when you're finding things difficult. For example, if I said, if Lynn said to me, instead of going for a walk on the beach, let's jog on the beach next time, I might say, well, Lynn, remember, I'm not as young as I used to be, because I would find that difficult to run along the beach for an hour. So
that's true.
It's often when physically, usually physically, but not exclusively, you find things a bit difficult because of your age.
Yeah, that's true. And we can use this also to describe other people. So we can say, for example, I can say, Craig couldn't come jogging with me. He's not as young as he used to be. So I can talk about him like that. But I don't. You can ask me directly now, Craig, how old I am, and I'll give you a direct answer.
You sure?
Yeah.
How old are you, Lynn?
I'm the same age as you.
Oh, that's right, you are.
But yeah. I'm not 58 yet. I'll be 58 in the summer, in July. But have you turned 58 already?
I think so. I was born in 1963.
Oh no, you're a year
So
older than me then. You'll be turning 59 this year.
I'm pushing 60. Wow,
Well, then
that's
you're not
scary.
58. You just told me you were 58.
Well, no, I'm pushing 60s. I'm close to it.
Ah, okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, that's
one
right.
and
You
a
are.
half.
Yeah, you're still
Yeah,
pushing.
I'm
Mhm.
pushing it, so not far away.
Yeah, you're pushing 60.
That's
But
scary.
no, there's a year between us. Then I'm 64. I'm from 64. Okay. All right. Some more expressions.
Yeah, because so these expressions, I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm not getting any younger. They can be quite negative, perhaps, but I can also say I'm not over the hill yet. So if you're over the hill, and if you're a Spanish speaker, hill is colina. If you're over that hill, which is a small mountain, then maybe you are too old to do certain things. Maybe we can say you're past it. You're too
You're
old
past your
to do
prime.
things.
Earlier we had that
Way
word.
past your prime.
Because your
Yeah,
prime would be at the top of the mountain, maybe, and you're on the other side.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the expression to be not over the hill is it means I'm, don't I can jog, I can run for maybe half an hour. So I'm not that old. I'm not over the hill yet. But using hills as well to talk about age, if you are as old as the hills, you are very, very old. And that can also be for things. We were asked before, can we use these for things? You can say, oh, this car's as old as the hills. I've had it for more than 20 years. So you can speak about things with that
And
expression.
I often use that last expression, that as old as the hills. I use that and I say I feel. So for example, if I had gone jogging with you on the beach, which Craig and I would never do, we're not that stupid, are we, Craig? We just have a walk along the beach occasionally.
And we like to talk, so we
And
can't
we
really
like to
talk if we're
talk, so we
running this
couldn't
way.
jog anyway. But when we have had a walk along the beach, if we had jogged along the beach, I can guarantee you that afterwards I'd say, oh my God, I feel as old as the hills. So I often say that when I'm feeling especially tired, I would say, I feel as old as the hills. I feel as old as the hills. Mm-hmm.
And as we said at the beginning of this live stream, when we were thinking of the topic and we'd forgotten that we had covered the topic of similar words or similar meanings before, we could say that we were having a senior moment. So you've got junior, which is the younger expression, or the senior, the older expression. If you have a senior moment, that means that your memory fails you. You forget something that maybe you shouldn't. And that happens also when you get older. You forget things. You do like things I do is I take the dirty plates into the kitchen and I put them in the fridge because I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking what to do on
That's definitely
the
a
live
senior
stream.
moment.
I do this sometimes. Or I walk into the bedroom with the dirty plates. And my wife says, where are you going with the dirty plates? Oh, I had a senior moment. I forgot what I was doing. And I do that occasionally. Because as we know, guys, you must be with me, men cannot multitask. So if I'm thinking of something, I can't do something else at the same time.
That's true.
Because I'm no spring chicken. What's a spring chicken?
Well, I don't really know where that one comes from. Well, I suppose maybe chickens, they hatch at Easter time, don't they? In the spring when all the new animals come. Yeah. So a chicken is like the first birth of spring. And he's no spring chicken means he's not very young. He's more like a very old animal. Yeah. So he's no spring chicken is a euphemism to say he's quite old.
Uncle Google is telling me that a young chicken for eating, which was originally available only in spring. So yeah, that was very, very close. That idea of Easter as well.
Easter, so he's no spring chicken. I think it's amazing when we were looking for all of these words, is just what a hot topic it is. And I think it is in Spain too, people, isn't it amazing in the language that for a very simple concept, which is age, we have all of these words to avoid saying what we are.
Yeah.
I find that really, it's very strange, isn't it? It's like a taboo topic almost to say how old you are. And we have all of these expressions. He's no spring chicken. I'm having a senior moment. You know,
And on the
it's all to
same,
avoid saying how old you are.
and in the same vein, that expression in the same vein, in the same theme or the same topic, where Lynn asked me to ask her age before, that is also quite taboo. I think also in most cultures, to ask, especially a woman her age, is not a very polite question. So be careful about that. Eduardo says that we're not alone with our senior moments, so that's good. Yeah, I feel better.
But I don't know what the big deal is about asking women about how old they are. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I always was educated not to ask
No,
a
I
woman
know.
her
No.
age.
And I think I've also been educated to be offended if somebody asks my age, although I'm certainly not. I don't get offended when people ask my age. But I know many people, many other women who don't like to be asked their age. But I think that reflects how age conscious our society is, how we undervalue older people. And we have a lot of emphasis on youth, don't we?
Yeah.
It's obviously that people don't want to reveal that they are no longer young.
Our next expression, you're as young as you feel. Another simile, you're as young as you feel. Notice those two as's either side of the adjective there. You're as young as you feel. I think that's true. Sometimes I feel my age, but sometimes I feel younger. So I think you could be. I had a senior moment there for a second. You could be. you could be pushing 80, but if you feel 60 or 50, then great. You're as young as you feel. If you're healthy, then that's
Well,
good.
I learned something from my mum. My mum is 92 now.
Wow.
And so she's a ripe old age, my mum. And my mum has always said to me, but she said it's increasingly in the last few years, she said, you know, in my head, I still feel like I did when I was 14 or 15.
Wow.
And she says she still feels as young as ever in her head, and it's simply that like her body is not the same as her head. And as I'm getting older, I have to say I feel I know where she's coming from. I that's an expression. I know where she's coming from means I understand her completely, because if I really think about it, my brain, my psyche feels like the same way when I was an adult, really, like a young adult, probably not like a child, but, you know, like maybe I was 18, 19, 20. I still see life in the same way. But when you look in the mirror, you get a bit of a shock because you don't, you know, I still imagine myself doing things like I used to imagine myself doing things.
That's interesting that you say that, because as you say, we are a similar age, but I don't feel that way at all.
Do you not?
No, I don't. I definitely have noticed myself getting older. And I remember how I used to feel when I was in my 20s, mid 20s or early 30s. And I definitely don't feel that way now.
No, but do you, like, for example, sometimes I see like sports on television, yeah, and when I was a child, and you saw like dancers doing really great things and dancing, or you saw acrobats and things, I used to look at it and think, oh wow, that would be great. I'd love to learn that, you know. And I kind of see that on the television, and I still think that, but I know that there's like certain movements that I haven't got a chance to learn now. Whereas when I was 18 or 19, maybe I was in with a chance. Now I mean, a lot of the things I just can't do, but the desire to do them is just as strong. as it
Yeah.
was when I was younger. That's what I mean. Do
Oh,
you
yeah.
have that?
Yeah, the desire's there. For example, I might put on some music from the 80s or the early 90s, some Motown or some soul music, and dance to it. And I just go
Mm-hmm.
right back 30, 35 years to when I danced in clubs to that music, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel that age again. On
Mm-hmm.
the other hand, I might watch a Rocky film and think,
Uh-huh.
oh, I'm going to go and jog on the beach tomorrow. But as soon as I start jogging, my knees remind me that
Uh-huh.
I'm not that age, that
No,
I can't
but
just,
that's because you realize that you're actually not.
and then I feel older.
Then you feel then you feel over the hill. No,
Over there.
exactly the same with me, and that's what my mum says to me. You know, she says I feel exactly the same, but then I do certain things, and now I get really, really tired very quickly. Obviously, at 92. She's talking about very basic things that we do, you know, that she used to be able to do really quickly before, and now things are taking their time. But she says it's a very frustrating feeling because in her head she's still fast, but in her body the body won't keep up with the brain.
Well, if I had to choose, I think I'd rather keep my mental faculties, my mental ability at like your mum, and maybe lose some physical ability than the other way
Yes,
around. So I
of
think she's
course.
doing okay. We've got some
Yeah.
comments coming in. Christine
Mm-hmm.
says, age is a state of mind. You're as old as you feel. That's what people usually say who are as fit as a fiddle. That's a lovely
That
expression, fit as a fiddle.
And I think she's quite right, because you do feel like that. You know, my mum has been quite fit, really, most of her life, and so and so far, me too. Touch wood. So of course, it is true that when you're feeling healthy, then of course it's easy to stay feeling young, isn't it? But if
Yeah.
if you're unlucky and you have an illness or you have poor health, then you do feel automatically worse in you might feel older in your head.
Be careful of your
Yeah.
word order there, Christine. That's what people usually say who are as fit as a fiddle. And Eduardo says, you're as young as you feel until your knees start to hurt. Absolutely. And they remind you of that preposition with remind of your real age. Hemmer agrees with Christine. Age is a state of mind. And what does Aldo say? Talking about age, with all my respect, Lynne looks like a
Oh, how nice. Quinceanera. Then I can have a party. They in I think you must be from South America, are you, Aldo? Because I've heard, he says it's a colloquial word used in Peru. For women with great attitude and the way they act and looks. Also, it has to do with mindset or mindfulness. I know I was thinking of Quinceanera I think it's in Colombia, and they have these parties when you're 15. And it's like a debutante party in Britain when you come
like
out
a
as a
coming
debutante.
of age.
Coming of age party, and they have them in Colombia at 15. So I thought, oh great, I can have a party. But he's from Peru. You're from Peru, Aldo, so it has a different meaning. But thank you for the compliment. Thank you.
And Gemma doesn't feel so different as when she was 20 or 30. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
are.
great. Well done. Good news.
Great. Okay.
So you're young as you'll feel. So if you feel young, as Lynne does, and that's a wonderful thing, you can say that you're as young as you feel. And if you're feeling young and energetic, you can say you're young at heart, which means, maybe you are 92 years old, but if you have a very positive attitude, if your mind is sharp, we can use the adjective sharp to speak about your mental state of mind. Like a knife is sharp, your mind is sharp, and then maybe you're young at heart. You have a lot of energy, and you're happy to do things, and you're very positive. You have a very positive attitude. However, what does this mean? Long in the tooth.
I think this is the idea. The teeth keep growing, because I think there's some animals where the teeth never stop growing.
Elephants.
Is it elephants?
I think so.
And of course they keep their teeth the right length through eating and things. But if something happens to their bottom tooth and they can't stop, then the tooth just keeps getting longer and longer. So if you're long in the tooth, of course, human beings, our teeth usually stop growing, thank God.
Or they fall out.
I think, do you know actually what continues to grow all through your life?
Hair in your
No,
ears and from
your
your
ears.
nose.
No, your ears
Really?
themselves is the only part of your body that continues to grow. And I didn't realize
Didn't know
that. But
that.
if you notice, all older people, have much bigger ears than little people. And then I started looking at my ears. I'm glad I'm covering them up now, everybody, because you can't see them. Mine are so small. You're conscious now, aren't you? So there you are. But apparently ears. If you want to know how old somebody is, look at the size of their ears.
Look at the size of their ears.
Because apparently human ears do continue to grow. Okay, so that's been long in the tooth. Eduardo says rodents. Rodents is a
like
word
mice,
for mice and rats. Do their teeth keep growing? Is that what you mean, Eduardo? Do their teeth keep growing? Maybe.
I think they do, yeah, possibly.
Maybe.
What's the next word? What next? Let's have a look.
All right. So now we're looking at some other phrases related to age, aren't we? So
long
I
in
think
the
we've got
tooth.
long in the tooth,
and then to act your age. Now that could be said to someone who is acting immature. So say, for example, you have children and they're maybe 18 or 19, but they're acting like 12-year-olds or 13-year-olds. You could say, act your age, behave yourself. You're being immature. So act your age. We used to say, act your age, not your shoe size.
Yeah, we used to say that too. But that doesn't really work in Spain because your shoe sizes are like 38, 40, 42, 44. But in the UK, the shoe sizes are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Mine is 8. Yeah,
you're an 8. A man might go to an 8. So that phrase, act your age, not your shoe size,
doesn't work.
Always works in English, but not in Spain. No.
And of course, as I was saying before, sometimes I do feel my age, which means you feel the age you are. But that expression is generally used when you're not feeling very young or energetic. So the idea of feeling your age is, I'm getting some aches and pains, my back. Oh, I'm very tired. I'm feeling my age. So it's often used in a negative way.
Okay. And then another phrasal verb that we use with age is to get on in years. The phrasal verb get on, which normally we get on the bus, which means to get into the bus, or get on a plane, for example, which means it's to embark. But this is another meaning of the phrasal verb, get on in age, and it's usually used in the ing form. And you say, I'm getting on in years. I'm getting on a bit, which means that you are progressing through your life. And we often say, well, in years is very specific. It's clear that it's age. But sometimes, even if you just say, I'm getting on a bit, that means I'm getting older. I'm getting on a bit. So I could say, how's your aunt, or how's your mum and dad? And you say, oh, they're getting on a bit now, which means that they're getting older.
Yeah, or an excuse for something that older people tend to do. For example, if somebody says to Lynne, you know, that Craig, he took the dirty plates into the bedroom. Well, he's getting on a bit.
He's getting on a bit. You got to forgive him. He's getting on a bit. He's having senior moments.
He's pushing 60. Give him a chance. So Christine is asking about nimble mind. Does it mean the same as a sharp mind? Well, a sharp mind is very quick. You remember things easily. Nimble mind is very similar, isn't it, Lynne?
I don't know. I think there's this tiny little difference. And I think a sharp mind means that you can see immediately the objective or the point of something. But when you have a nimble mind, I think it means that you are kind of flexible. You can multitask.
Lateral
Yeah,
thinking.
more lateral thinking, really.
Thinking outside
Sharp
the box.
mind is more direct. And nimble means that you are agile, that you're quick and you can jump from one thing to another, I think.
Maybe find solutions easily because you're
Yeah.
thinking with different patterns. Yeah.
Yes.
But fairly similar.
They're very similar, though. Yeah, that's true.
And we spoke about teenage years before. Now, teenage years can sometimes be a difficult age or an awkward age, especially when teenagers are starting to, their bodies start to change. And from the ages of maybe 14 to 18, teenagers can be very temperamental. It's like they've got the biggest problems in the world because the boyfriend or girlfriend is doing this. So it can be a very volatile or difficult age. So if the teenager is behaving badly, or there might be a problem with the teenager, you can say, well, yes, it's an awkward age. She's at an awkward age. Use the preposition at. She's at, or he's at, a difficult age. That's why he's misbehaving.
Okay. And somebody I've just seen, but you don't have to put it up, but somebody's writing some strange things in the chat. And that's a little bit kind of offensive. So that would be nice if that person stopped doing that.
I've just blocked them.
That's great. Because that was a little bit of an awkward age probably thing.
Yeah, that was that's a difficult age.
That's an example of an awkward age. Somebody's trying to spoil something there. Okay, and then we have now it's not only teenagers that have problems, of course, in life. There are other age groups that have problems. I think I better do this one, Craig, and then you can do yours. Or would you like to do this one?
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Right. So of course, women after the teenage years, of course, then we have the midlife thing. Crisis. And menopausal women go through the menopause. And sometimes the menopause is called the change. Now, sometimes it's called the change in life. And sometimes people refer to the age of people and say, oh, she's going through the change. Or they might say, I'm in the change. And that's referring to a period of your life. Of course, it's a physical period of your life, like teenage, just like adolescence or puberty. Then it's this particular thing. But they use this sort of euphemism, which is the change. Okay. It can be used neutrally. So it's perfectly acceptable to use that in a descriptive sense. But sometimes it's used in a bit of a disrespectful sense, isn't it? Like when people are being rude about people, like if somebody was being rude about you, they might say, oh, she's in the change. And it's very disrespectful to say those kind of things. And we have kind of the equivalent for men, don't we? Because I added it on for the men as well.
The midlife crisis?
Yeah, because I think often the midlife crisis is used to describe men rather than women, don't you think?
Yeah, and it tends to happen to men in their 40s, the mid 40s. That's a typical age to go through a midlife crisis. And you'd use that verb to go through, that phrasal verb to go through a midlife crisis. The neighbor's just bought a Harley Davidson motorbike. Oh, he's going through a midlife crisis. Or he's just bought a sports car. He's going through a midlife crisis.
But again, that expression can be used neutrally, descriptively, and it's perfectly acceptable. You can say, I had a midlife crisis and I decided to change my career, for example. There's nothing wrong with that. And it just means that you reached a point in your life where you decided to change. But of course, if you use it to describe somebody like Craig was just doing, he's having a midlife crisis. It's kind of disrespectful, just like you'd say, "Oh, she's in the change." it's you're attributing a behavior to something that you've got no idea about. So it's a little bit disrespectful.
But it's usually something very strange or very out of character.
Something out of character, yeah.
A person, like a man who works in a bank, who's always worked in a bank, suddenly goes off to India and starts smoking marijuana on the beach for 6 months. Very out of character. He's having a midlife crisis.
That's right.
So we used old as a verb. How old are you? And we used age as a noun. But age can also be used as a verb. You can say to age well, which is obviously positive, or you can age badly, which means maybe you abuse your body, you drink a lot of alcohol, you take drugs, you smoke, you obviously age badly because it affects the way you're aging. To age gracefully, she's aging gracefully. I think that means, for example, if we're speaking about a woman, that she maybe hasn't had any cosmetic surgery, or she hasn't dyed her hair, colored her hair. She's letting age change her body in a natural way, and she looks good. That's what I understand. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think also I use aging gracefully when you're describing the way people dress sometimes. Yeah, like when you're Felipe says apparently comments are blocked for everyone. Are they?
Oh,
Or were
really?
they blocked? Oh, well, obviously not, because he's just managed to get through.
No, Felipe, we can see your comments.
Yeah, please.
I only blocked the person who was being silly and not acting their age. But I may have blocked YouTube comments, because we are streaming to YouTube.
No,
If
Felipe says he's wrong. He's okay.
If someone's watching on YouTube, can you just say hi so that we know that the comments are coming through from YouTube?
Okay.
And that silly person should be gone.
Okay, so to age gracefully, I actually use that when I'm describing how people dress, because here's another expression. We haven't got this on here, but sometimes when you're describing the way women dress, sometimes some women, old women, dress in a very, very youthful way. So maybe they wear mini skirts. Imagine somebody who's like 80 or 85 wearing mini skirts and
high heels
and a little bralette top or something like that. Now, there is an expression in English to describe that. I mean, I'm not making any value judgments here, but this expression is, do you know that expression? That's mutton dressed as lamb.
Yes,
have you heard
I've
that
heard
one?
Yeah.
Mutton is the mature sheep, and dressed as lamb is the baby sheep. And dressed has a double meaning, because dressed means dressed as in clothes. But in cooking, when you dress the meat, you might put like sort of herbs or spices or oil on it. That's called the dressing, like the salad dressing. Yeah, so you've heard that word from salad dressing. So there's this strange expression, mutton dressed as lamb. So mutton dressed as lamb means that you are dressing in a form that is not usual for your age, right? You're trying to look much younger.
But don't use that expression. Don't say that expression to someone, because it can be quite insulting.
No, it's insulting. These are expressions that you'll hear being said separately. Yeah. And but the opposite of that, if somebody doesn't try to dress in a youthful way, but dresses according to their age, if you believe that dressing has ages, but then often that's used to describe dressing to age gracefully. So, for example, I'll give it a clear example. If a woman, for example, doesn't have cosmetic surgery, like you said, if she embraces grey hair, for example, and doesn't dye her hair, and if she changes the way that she dresses and always looks good like that, then, I don't know, to disguise her wrinkles gracefully, then we say she is aging gracefully. So she looks fantastic, but she looks the age that she is. And you can also use it for men too. I mean, there are men that age gracefully and men that don't age so gracefully.
I can think of a few actors and actresses that age gracefully and don't
Of
age
course,
gracefully.
of course, of course.
Let's leave vocabulary for a minute because we only have a few minutes and look at some questions we've got that are connected to age because we're
Hmm.
interested to see or to hear or to read what you think if
Hmm.
you're watching. So, do you think we get wiser as we get older? Wise means, if you're a Spanish speaker, it's sabio, but it means that you get a view on life that is very intelligent or deep. So you're
Hmm.
seeing life from a mature perspective. As an older person, some people say that we tend to be more intelligent, cleverer about what we do, what we think, in our opinions. Do you think that's true,
Hmm.
Lynn? As we get older, do we get wiser?
Well, here's the thing. When I was in my 40s, um, I used to think that was true, that when you get older, you get wiser because obviously you've got more experience. So you're not going to make the same mistakes as you made before. You definitely have, as you have more years, it's obvious you're going to have a broader vision of life, really. So you've got more history, you've got more experience of yourself. And I think vainly, I used to believe when I was in my 40s that I was getting wiser. But funnily enough, now I've got teenagers. Well, they're not teenagers anymore. They're young adults, my daughters. My daughters are young now,
Early
and they're going
20s.
early 20s. And they're going through things in their life that, of course, I can see many parallels that I had in my own life at that age. And I try to put myself in their positions. It was harder when they were teenagers because I think our teenage experience was very, very different. But now that we're young adults, they're at university, finishing university, trying to start work, that kind of thing. I have more I can remember what it felt like when I was that age.
Mhm.
And to be frank, now I'm looking back at it. And when I think really, I think, yeah, I've got lots of little nuggets of wisdom that I can give them. But actually, like I was telling my daughter today, I was saying, don't stress so much about university. Take every day as it comes. Don't worry about things. And it will pass. Your exams will pass. Just stay chill. It'll be all right. But then I said to her, but what am I doing at work? Every day I'm stressing about my work. I haven't got time. I haven't got this, I haven't got that. So I'm thinking, did I really get wiser? And
Practice what you preach.
exactly. And in actual fact, I don't think I am any wiser than I was when I was in my 20s. I think I do exactly the same things. I just do different things, but I end up being the same person. You don't really change your personality that much. I would like to think that I'm wiser in some aspects, but I'm not sure.
Felipe's
What
saying
about
some.
you?
Felipe's saying sometimes with age, some people get stubborn when
Mm,
they get older. Yeah, I've noticed that, Felipe. I do get stubborn. But although I agree with Lynn, sometimes I think we're wiser than we actually are. I think with some things we do change our perspectives. For
mhm,
example, with time. When I
mhm,
was younger, I thought time was infinite and I didn't
uh-huh,
worry about wasting it. Now, as I'm getting older, I really value it more and I'm very aware of how I spend my time.
mm,
Um,
mhm,
I think that's one thing about getting older that you do appreciate time more.
mhm,
But on a similar theme,
mhm,
because you were talking, Lynn, about your daughters and they're older than 18, but round about that age, what
mhm.
advice would you give to yourself if you could give advice to your 18-year-old self?
I think I know the advice. I would say don't have any hang-ups. Don't get obsessed with the little
What's a hang
things.
up?
A hang-up is when you get obsessed with something. So for example, you might have when I was 18, like I had typical hang-ups like a lot of teenage girls do, and I always think, oh, it's my hair. I would spend like hours on my hair. Or I would think, oh, I don't like the way this looks on me. Maybe you'd spend hours on those
Yeah.
little things, which now, of course, in this sense, I think I'm wiser, but I'm not sure. Because I think now, of course, I wouldn't worry about that. I look back at the photographs and I think, oh, why was I worrying so much about that? I was fine. But I think that those kind of little worries, they just shift where they are. But really, I think I've probably still got them, but in other aspects of my life. But the advice I would give to myself as an 18-year-old and as a 57-year-old is enjoy every day while you can and stop
Every
worrying
second.
about things.
Yeah.
Because I worry far too much and it's not good. What about you? What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
I agree. I think, but if I go back to when I was 18, 20, probably less time socializing and more time learning things. The problem is that now I know what I would have learned when I was 18, 20, or what would have helped me in later life. But when you're an 18-year-old, it's very difficult to look into the future and think, well, what should I be spending my time doing? What should I be learning? What should I be preparing for now? Because you don't know what you want when you're 18 very often. So it's very difficult.
And I think, but I disagree with you about the socializing, you see, because I think you need to have that socializing when you're young to develop your own personality. It's through socializing with other people that you become the person that you are. And if you're not the person that you are, then you don't know what you want. So I don't think you can skip over. You can't go straight into just learning things. You have to discover who you are and what's important to you. And then you know what you want to learn, I think.
Well, let me rephrase then and say I should have spent less time in pubs. I'll rephrase it that way.
We got some lovely comments coming in.
There's a saying in English, new brooms sweep better, but old brooms know all the corners. I like that. Yeah.
I like that one too. Yeah. And that's very true. Yeah, new brooms sweep better, but old brooms know all the corners.
Very nice.
Okay, that is
and
nice.
Eduardo, you don't get wiser, but you care much less about many things. That's true. Yeah, I don't really care about fashion and how I look, obviously. I don't worry about the little things. I don't sweat the small things anymore. And I think that's a great advantage of getting older, that you just don't care what people think as much.
Yes, because you've done your socializing, you see, you know who you are. So you don't need the approval necessarily of everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're out of time, more or less. So I think we'll leave it there. We hope you found these expressions about age useful. And that you'll come back next week when I'll be
1 week older. You'll be 1 week older next week.
I'll be 1 week older. And so will you.
No, I'll be 2 weeks older because I'm not coming next week. I'm coming in 2 weeks.
That's right.
So enjoy the way I look now, because in 2 weeks' time, who knows what will be here.
That's right. But yeah, same time next week with Monica. And Lynne will be back in 2 weeks. We'll be speaking about a different topic. But before we go, we'll just
we hope we remember what it is.
if we remember to do it. But before we go, we'll just remind you of who we are and what we do. Lynne?
Okay, thank you. So, right, I'm Lynne. I'm from putitlikethis.com. That's my website. And I offer tailor-made courses in English for people. So for specific purposes. So it's not kind of like a general course that you get in an academy. Usually it's if you have a specific purpose. So your purpose could be passing an exam, or your purpose could be making a presentation or writing in English, or for example, teachers who are teaching in English, but they're not native speakers. I do specialized pronunciation classes. I do classroom management classes. So it's for any kind of special purpose that you have in English. Then if you go to my website, you'll see the different types of courses that I do, but usually I tailor make the course to fit the student. So it depends on your needs, and then I put a course together to help you achieve your objectives as quickly as possible.
Okay. And my name's Craig. and I write material for mentioningles.com. If you go to that website, you'll see free material and courses that will help you with your English. And we also have a podcast that you can find at inglespodcast.com. And if you are thinking of taking the B2 first exam, I have finished a course that's available. The best way to find out the next date for the course is to go to inglespodcast.com, and you'll see a way to join our newsletter. And through the newsletter, you'll find out the date of the next course. So if you're thinking of doing the B2 first exam from Cambridge, then I can help you with that. Until next time, thanks a lot for being with us. Thanks for your company. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.